For the better part of 5 years, I have been making Fallout content on YouTube. I write a script for every video, even the short ones, then I go to record the gameplay needed for each video. After that, I use Wondershare Filmora 12 to edit, and the rest is what you see when you come to my channel. I started thinking about fun ideas for a Fallout video, and this is what I came up with. I went to the notorious contractor site Fiverr and looked for a team that could make a Fallout video come to life. I hired script writers who didn't specialize in gaming, so I could have a truly unique take on these incredibly beloved games. This has led to inaccurate information in some of the video, but that was part of the fun of the project. I hired professional voice actors to read these scripts, ranging from a hungry up-and-comer to an award-winning commercial star, each bringing their style to craft this one-of-a-kind Fallout experience. And I am proud to present to you the Fallout video I made from Fiverr in 2023.
This is the Law Harold, a warrior of the post-apocalyptic world. Join his journey of determination and leadership in this epic video. Harold was only 5 years old when the war began, and the world he knew was forever changed. The sirens blared, signaling the end of everything. And Harold, along with a group of other young children, was rushed into Vault 29. The Vault was a sanctuary, a safe haven from the nuclear bombs and radiation that ravaged the surface. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, Harold soon realized that their sanctuary was not all it seemed. Living in an overpopulated vault with insufficient food and water, Harold and the other children were placed under the care of Diana, a human scientist who had been immortalized by combining her human brain with a supercomputer. She controlled the vault and the nursery, a repository of seeds and genetic records retained in the event of a global thermonuclear war. Diana kept the peace by sending out young inhabitants to scout the surface and report back if it was safe to settle. But no one ever came back, and Harold soon learned the horrifying truth. Diana was using the young inhabitants as guinea pigs, sending them to the nursery where they could either join her or leave after being trained not to speak of the nursery or the vault. Harold knew he had to leave. He couldn't stay in that place anymore. So, at the age of 18, he left the vault, determined to make a life for himself in the wasteland. He began his fortune as a trader, making the circuit between the survivalist communities that sprouted up across New California. He made a tidy profit over the next 12 years, rising to popularity in the hub. But even success had a price, as Harold's caravans were constantly under attack from gangsters, scavengers, and mutant creatures. He knew he needed to find the source of these mutants and put an end to it. And so, on May 22nd, 2102, Harold funded one of the first questing parties in New California with Richard Gray, a mysterious hub scientist and doctor. The voyage set out from the hub, following the mutants to the northwest, deep into California's Central Valley. It was a treacherous journey, and the mutants seemed to be an unending flow. But Harold and his group were determined to reach their destination, Mariposa Military Base. Penetrating the base's defenses proved difficult, and the group was eventually reduced to just Harold and Richard Gray. Francine was injured, and Mark was returned to the surface, never to be seen or heard from again. But Harold and Gray pushed on, finally making it all the way into the base's central core, where the FEV vats were located. But the journey had taken its toll, and as they reached the vats, a robotic crane collided with the expedition. Gray was thrown into a vat of FEV, and Harold was badly injured. He passed out, only to wake up days later in the wasteland, in the throes of change caused by FEV exposure. He had handled a contaminated item in the base, and now his body was forever changed. Harold returned to the hub, but he was no longer the same man. His horrifying transformation cost him his business, as employees and partners abandoned him. He was soon abandoned as a beggar, living in a derelict ruin in the old town. But Harold refused to let his circumstances defeat him. Despite his poverty, his determination and fortitude enabled him to survive. Harold was a wise and experienced elder of the wasteland, known for his knowledge of both past and present events. He was willing to share his knowledge in exchange for a small fee, and his determination to make a difference in the wasteland never wavered. After leaving the hub, he journeyed north with a sapling in his mind, and eventually settled in Gecko, where he became the de facto leader and helped improve the power plant's efficiency and safety. He also worked to improve the lives of the ghouls by building new homes, community gardens, and a school. However, not everyone welcomed his progressive ideas, and he faced opposition from those who saw the ghouls as monsters. But Harold was determined to change their minds and prove that the ghouls deserved a decent life, just like anyone else. With the help of Bob, the sapling that had accompanied him on his journey, Harold was able to make the Gecko power plant a model of sustainability. Bob's tough seeds could withstand the harsh environment and provide a steady source of food for the community. Harold also used the plant's unique properties to create new medicines and technologies that benefited the entire wasteland. Harold's efforts did not go unnoticed, and soon he was recognized as a leader not only in Gecko, but also in the larger wasteland community. He became a mediator in disputes between settlements and a voice for the oppressed. He was even offered a position in the ruling council of Vault City, but he refused, preferring to stay in Gecko and continue his work there. Harold lived to see the day when the wasteland was no longer a place of death and despair, but a place where people could live in peace and prosperity. He passed away at the age of 105, but his legacy lived on through the thriving community of Gecko and the many other settlements that had been touched by his kindness and generosity. His name was remembered as a hero who had dedicated his life to making the wasteland a better place for all. He was a survivor of the war and a true warrior of the post-apocalyptic world. His story is a testament to the human spirit and how one person can make a difference. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below.
It is the 23rd of October. The year is 2077, and the Great War is about to hit in full force. At 3:37 in the morning, several bombers are spotted at high altitude. They're mostly hidden by the clouds above, a flash of metal in the dark. Reports of submarines have already come in from the coast of California. Word spreads. Something is about to happen. But no one is prepared for the nuclear bombs to be dropped. Two of them, almost at the same time, New York and Pennsylvania, are struck at 9:42 in the morning. It only takes 5 minutes for a massive blackout to sweep across the entire nation. No lights, no phones, no internet. The entire country went dark. Communications dropped all over the country. Those close to the states that were hit could see the mushroom clouds, but with no lines of communication available, they could not pass on the warning. Many people believe that the Great War was something that happened over time, but it really shook the world in a matter of seconds. Nuclear war is not a beginning. It's an ending. It is the moment that all life comes crashing down into a sudden blaze of fire and smoke. There's no glory and no rallying cry, no soldiers hitting the ground, and no patriotic view of war, in the sense that many Americans picture it through their media consumption. It is not bloody, but it is brutal. 2 bombs, starting the war that would bring about an end to the entire nation. But it was not just 2 bombs. The Great War was an assault upon the American soil. What started in the northern states quickly expanded outwards, and mushroom clouds plumed in the sky, and soot fell upon the land, spreading out in all directions. The sound was deafening. For the next 2 hours, the blasts continued. The Great War was a catastrophe of the highest sort. Power lines were snapping. Radiation was contaminating the water and the air itself. The blast zones were fully decimated, but they weren't the only things that were affected. Radiation wafted out, taking out entire lakes and forests. The rain turned to acid. The skies were dark and light in equal measure as the mushroom clouds bloomed and faded, leaving behind the red of fire. Sirens went off all over the states, though Las Vegas was the most prepared to deal with this situation. The Sino-American War had been ongoing for years now, and faults had been assigned to many of the higher-ups and those who had an amount of importance placed on them. But the sirens didn't save them. Many believed that it was nothing more than a drill, because the lines had gone down after the initial attack on New York. The southern states were unprepared for the full force of the nuclear bombs to be dropped on them. Electromagnetic pulses wiped out the communications of the National Guard, cars that ran off of batteries, and most automatic weapons. And though this is considered to be the greatest war of all time, it only lasted 2 hours. When the bombs stopped, much of America had been devastated, and the sections that were not gutted by the blast had been left uninhabitable. Even breathing in the air could kill you. Only those who had managed to get inside of the vaults were able to survive. And over the next 200 years, these effects would continue to be felt. 2 hours, and the greatest war of all was done.
Appearing in every game to date, the Brotherhood of Steel has its own unique story within the Fallout lore. The Brotherhood's influence is far-reaching throughout the Wasteland, and we can chart its history as far back to the US Army pre the Great War. This background of former military soldiers and scientists explains the fact that the Brotherhood takes on the form of a modern-style military. But rather than defense, their collective main aim is to discover technological advancements in the US, regardless of the differences in their sub-factions. Let's take a closer look at the history of this ever-present organization. The techno-religious faction has its roots courtesy of Captain Roger Maxson of the United States Army. Maxson was sent to the West Tech Research Facility by Superior Colonel Robert Spindle to monitor experiments being conducted for national security. On relocation to Mariposa military base, the captain discovered to his horror that military prisoners were being used as involuntary test subjects. The subsequent and very understandable drop in morale led to Colonel Spindle's suicide, which by default promoted Maxson to heading up the base. As the Great War of 2077 broke out and finished almost as quickly as it started, the military base survived, as did Maxson and his men. They ventured out long with their families to get to the government bunker at Lost Hills, California. Suffering several casualties along the way, they got to their destination, and this became the headquarters for the Brotherhood of Steel, whose mission was to rebuild civilization regardless of what it would take. After an initial focus on helping survivors, the Brotherhood developed into a group to preserve human knowledge and avoid this being made extinct. Other characteristics of the Brotherhood that Maxson promoted were the lack of isolation and the prohibition of nuclear weapons due to the fact that these were the reason why the world had been destroyed in the first place. However, this all changed when Maxson died due to cancer in 2135, leaving his son, Maxson II, to lead the Brotherhood. He insisted in isolation and forbade anyone from outside the Brotherhood to join. The only members could be from within families of the organization. Higher Elder Maxson II had 20 years heading up the Brotherhood until he was killed at the hands of a poisoned arrow when trying to track down vipers. The mantle of leader was again passed down the lineage of the Maxson family, and John Maxson was chosen reluctantly to lead the Brotherhood in 2161. Despite being a talented commander, his popularity waned as he got older. In his 60s, other members of the Brotherhood feared he succumbed to craziness as he insisted an army was gathering in the north, despite lack of any evidence. It was thought that this was an excuse for unnecessary fighting due to John's preference and talent for combat. It's unknown if he's alive or dead. A significant part of the Brotherhood's history is their East Coast expedition. Although there are other references to the East within the history we've already covered, The Capital Expedition represents the organization's expansion. Paladin Owen Leons led the expedition, which had three main objectives: scour Washington, D.C. to recover any and all advanced technology, investigate the reports of super mutant activity in the area, and finally, to re-establish contact with the Midwestern Brotherhood to return them to Lost Hills. Leons controversially decided to help survivors of the Wasteland, as the Brotherhood has originally done, which left him exiled from the original Brotherhood. Most of his men supported this decision, but others abandoned his command. Sarah Lyons, his daughter, took command of the East Coast faction, but was killed in battle on the front lines. Where most of her role was based, she would eventually be replaced with Arthur Maxson, the only surviving descendant of Roger. He proved himself to be an intelligent and formidable warrior after being protected and raised by Owen Leons during the Brotherhood's infighting. Arthur's actions would be the catalyst for the Brotherhood reuniting, and this Maxson became the youngest elder in the organization's history to bring the history full circle.
Thank you for checking out this video, and I really hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed piecing it together. I want to thank everyone who made this video a reality, but most importantly, I want you to stay safe and hydrated out in the wasteland. I'll catch you on the next one. It has been Mantis.